Hi guys, today I'm going to talk all about football commentary, and specifically I'm going to answer the question, where is it that football commentators work? Now I know what you're thinking, that sounds like a stupid question. Football commentators work at a football stadium, right? And the answer is not necessarily. Traditionally, yes. These days, increasingly, no. And I'm going to explain why. So let's begin with a bit of a history lesson. Historically, traditionally, commentators would turn up to the venue. They would do what's called an outside broadcast. If they were working for television, often they would be situated up high in the gods on a suspended platform called a gantry, which would give them a great overview of the stadium, and they would describe what they see on the pitch and of course cross-reference that with what the viewer is seeing back home, so the monitor. Similarly, their radio colleagues might work on a gantry, but often they would be positioned in the press box alongside their colleagues from the print media. In the United States, they have very plush modern facilities, and often in their stadiums they have what's called a broadcast booth where the play-by-play announcer and the colour commentator will work alongside one another, and there, aside from having great acoustics and naturally a very good view of the arena itself, they'll also be inside in the warm, nice and cosy, and not necessarily exposed to the elements in the same way you would be up on a gantry. So that's an outside broadcast working on site. That's traditionally how things worked. But naturally, with the advance of technology, with the way the world is changing, over the years, commentary has become increasingly more possible and more feasible and more cost-effective remotely, what's called off-tube commentary. Now, I have no quarrel with off-tube commentary whatsoever. In fact, the bulk of the matches I call are done remotely. Indeed, if you're not willing to work as an off-tube commentator, then it's highly likely that you wouldn't book much work at all unless you're part of that very established elite right at the top of the industry. The only controversy I can see in recent times is the recent spate of people publicising the fact that they're doing a game remotely. This calls to mind something I heard on Nick Heath's very good podcast, Q Commentator, an episode he did with Clive Tilsley around 18 months ago, in which Clive spoke as to the magic of radio broadcasting, how he had a radio show back in his student days, and how he was chided by his then program controller for ruining the magic of radio.
I was doing a late night show. I was on from 10 p.m. till 2 a.m. And the cleaners would inevitably come in at some stage. And during one show, I referred to a cleaner coming in and emptying the bins. And my program controller had me in the next morning. He said, don't. Yeah, he said that there is a magic about radio. Don't talk about anything in the studio. Don't talk about the decks or, people listening, particularly at that time of night. There's an old movie called Play Misty for Me, which is, all about the kind of romance of listening to how you can fall in love with somebody you've never met, who is just a voice, just a broadcaster, who becomes a friend, becomes a solace to you in some sort of way. Definitely. If you break that spell by talking about real things, you've got no chance of building that relationship.
Are you trying to say you don't love me anymore?
I never told you that I loved you.
Never knowing my right foot from my left, my hat from my glove. I'm too misty and too much in love. Now, we've got that awful singing out the way, but the good thing is that way I don't have to use copyrighted music, and of course, when this video goes viral, I'm able to monetize it, so quids in on that. Now, I'm wondering if this isn't the modern day equivalent of what I call the masked magician phenomenon. For those of you that didn't grow up in the UK, for those of you that aren't in your mid-30s,
both in our 30s, is the fact.
Then the masked magician got a lot of attention because he went on national television, primetime TV, and whilst he didn't reveal his own identity, what he did reveal were all the secrets of the world of magic. It caused a big stir, and this is quite similar to what I think Clive was saying about radio broadcasting, not necessarily describing what the listener doesn't need to hear. And I would say the same thing. Ordinarily, I would say don't publicise a game that you're doing off-tube. Don't publicise the fact that it is off-tube. Occasionally you see commentators who are quite crafty and canny. They'll take a photo of what's called the beauty cam shot. That's when the match director cuts to a generic, aesthetically pleasing shot of the stadium. Often it's where graphics like team news are put over. And they might zoom in there so you don't see the monitor. You might be able to see it's slightly grainy footage. And if you're a commentator like me, you can deduce the fact that they're doing it off tube. But maybe the viewer thinks, oh, okay, cool, they're in Tirana doing a game featuring Albania and France, for instance. So I would say, ordinarily, maybe don't publicise the fact that you're doing a game off tube. What the viewer doesn't know won't hurt him. Ignorance is bliss. I would wager that the majority of people watching football would assume the matches are being done from the stadium itself. That has changed recently, and I've seen clips of BBC radio commentators commentating from a studio. They've been publicising that on their social media. Recently I saw David Bumble Lloyd on Sky Sports, who does cricket, commentating from home. And I actually think this is very good PR, and I think it's a very positive message in light of the current climate, in light of everything that we're going through. It is a responsible editorial decision. They're saying the technology allows us to be able to broadcast from afar, and we are not endangering ourselves nor other people by doing unnecessary travel. So that's a bit of a history lesson about outside broadcasts, about off-tube commentary, about whether or not commentators are actually at the event or not. I will do another video in due course as to the pros and cons of working remotely and whether or not it's better to be at the ground doing the event. I hope you enjoyed this video. If it has opened your eyes to another facet of sports broadcasting, then I'm delighted. If you could pay me back with a cheeky thumbs up and a like on this video, comment to let me know if you'd like to see any specific content, and of course subscribe if you haven't done already. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers, guys.